everyone, it's Sean from HFR. Welcome to my channel. Probably wondering why I'm standing in front of a dryer. As it goes for every technician out there, kind of like your mechanics, you take care of everything else and then you put off everything that you need to do specifically for you. Um, but anyways, so I've got this dryer we've had for about a year, a little over a year. Maytag, what's the model number? MED6230HC1, Mike Echo Delta 6230, Hotel Charlie 1. But anyways, when you have a modern dryer, you actually need to service it roughly annually. I would say don't go over annually. Um, and I used to have an older, I think Kenmore Maytag or something, made in the 90s or early 2000s. And didn't have all these bells and whistles and electronics that don't just sense the heating element in it and act like a thermal fuse, but this actually senses the laundry load as well to detect when things are dry and shuts itself off. But the old stuff would just run. I mean, the barrel inside could practically be slamming through the sidewall of the chassis itself, and it would still be trying to run. So I guess you could say once you get newer technology and stuff, even though the components in there are going to have their tolerances, however tight those tolerances are, which would give you more capability, you kind of lose a bit of reliability because there's just simply more things to break. But that being said, if you end up liking this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel, why not subscribe? Just why not, I guess. As always, appreciate the comments. For those of you who don't know, I operate Having Fun Repairs as a doing business as here in Oklahoma. So if you need an appliance technician, Google Sites in the description. You can find my contact information or even my Gmail email account associated with this YouTube channel. Just email me. And I recently started up a Patreon too, so for those of you who are interested in exclusive content where I try to break down test equipment and electronics principles and engineering in layman terms, because that's the best I can do, please consider joining my Patreon. Again, those videos are going to be exclusive. They will not be released publicly here on my channel. But that being said, let me pull this out from the wall, unplug it, and we'll start taking it apart. Okay, I got it slightly pulled out from the wall, and little aluminum flexible pipe, whatever this is made out of, detached from the vent going outside to the vent coming off of the dryer itself, where all your hot airflow is going to leave the dryer now. And I will say this is the number one consideration that you need to give annually. Now you can see quite a bit of lint and stuff is collected just right there on that outlet, and then I'll be grabbing basically a brush that I can, almost like a pipe brush, actually is a pipe brush. So I'm going to stick down in there and just to pull out as much of that buildup of lint as possible, but as well as in here you can hear it. So most people are happy with just pulling out their lint trap and pulling lint out of there, but the buildup of lint over years is pretty much the number one issue of component failure in your dryer. So then we'll be getting the back off here in a second. So take this outside and anything loose, get it out. That's quite a bit of lint actually coming out of the thing. But, anyways, this part's pretty simple. Pipe brush down in there, get out any loose lint, pipe brush on the back, and we can move forward from there. Well, that wasn't too bad to get cleaned up, and you can see Still got a bit of lint that I'll clean out from in there. But anyways, we're going to take the back off this thing, give it some service. Now, I probably should have stayed up front. If you are following along with my video here, then you're doing so at your own risk. Now, I'm used to servicing appliances and stuff, but if you're not cautious with some things that you could probably get your hands close to, then you should probably give a lot of consideration to what you're doing. Now, in order for me to move forward and also take the time to look at what you're doing and kind of figure out how things are put together. Like, I just can't take the screws off the side to gain access. I need to consider, does this cable need to be unclamped? Do I need to remove this first to see if, and then remove this? I see I have this top part here and then some essentially screws that go through it, but look like they're more attached to this than it is this right here in some areas. So, well, I need to do this, and then I can take this off. All things to consider when you're sitting back and looking at the appliance as a whole. I will start with removing of this to see how this is wired up and see if it makes more sense to disconnect the wires internally to here or just remove this so the entire back can slide out. So in this case, just looking over what we have, it appears it would be a lot easier just to remove the wires that we have attached, our ground, and what's going to our lead, basically to our power plug. And then I can leave this attached to here, and it can all be removed from there. And I'll just annotate all the connections as they appear, and we'll go from that. I'll also recommend that when you take out your socket head, your screws, that you keep the screws in the order that you've removed. This one was what, a 5/16? Not sure if they're all like that, but again, it's something to consider. Well, in true fashion, not as simple as I initially suspected, although I got all the screws out as appropriate. There's still one there with looks like a grounding wire attached to it that needs to be detached. And in order to drop this back off, this bracket's in the way, but it does appear, just lifting, that this top can come out as a whole, so long as we disconnect these wires right here. So we're going to work our way around this, and I think I can lift up the top and then push from the front end, and we should be able to slide it off the entire machine. I'll attempt to do that and come back and tell you what I find. Well, removing the top was a bit easier than I was thinking, because essentially you have these two retaining tabs on either side. So it wasn't a lift up and pull backwards, it was a lift up and scoot forward, and then the entire thing was able to come out, as you see here. I did, however, cut this this zip tie here, which I suppose I probably could have just pulled it out to release this cable. But now that I'm inspecting this, I don't believe the back comes off of the dryer, because we can see welds right here that hold the back plate onto the sides. So in order for us to gain access, we're going to have to take off the front, as that appears to be more of what's readily available to take off. So we just think through this logically. Still, we have a electrical wire that needs to get unplugged here. We have two screws sitting up here, opening up the front door. We also have one screw here. It appears to be two retaining screws for our hinges there. And same thing over on this other side, one screw and then two retaining screws for the hinges. Now, will the hinges need to come out? I don't know. But that's something that we will figure out along the way. Well, these two top screws did have to come out. And the center going through, attaching to our lint basket, as well needed to come out. The hinges don't, from looking down here. If you look, it'd be hard to tell. You can see those hinges go through the chassis, but they're only on the other side, and that's going to be a portion of what we remove. So those hinge screws can remain. But like I said, don't force things. Take the time to look. I didn't initially fill screws on the bottom, so I was touching like this, but then I found that we do have some screws through there that also need to be removed. Well, now that the front is out of the way, we take a better look of everything inside. Now I went ahead and removed our lint catcher, threw it in there. Well, you can see quite a bit of lint build up over the past year. This is all the stuff that we're going to remove. We're also going to check the wheel bearings that spin the belt or spin our barrel. So we'll be taking our barrel out as well. But before I do that, here we have a heat exchange. So the intent of this, we have a massive blower type motor in here. Nice decent sized blower motor. The intent of it is to suck the hot air through your lint trap down into here and then push it out the back. So we're going to be taking this guy off so we can gain more access to everything down here for cleaning purposes. We'll probably also have to detach a few things right in here, but we'll work our way around it. We also have these wires here that should be disconnected. So quite a few things to work our way around, and we'll continue and come back. Okay, so this was pretty simple to remove. Just 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, as we see here. And you can just see all that lint that's built up inside of there. Quite a bit still to clean here. Here goes that blower motor that I was talking about. And then we can start to fill one of our wheels right here. I'll talk more about them in a second. But we're now going to take off this entire faceplate. Shouldn't have to take the wheels off to remove it. Should just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, it appears like. And we should be able to pull this all out as one assembly. And then after that, remove our barrel. But I'll let you know how it goes and we'll come back. It ended up being much easier than I was originally thinking. I had to remove the 4 screws on the side, and then I was able to lift the barrel and tap it upwards from the top, pulling it up, and then basically lifted this from the top as well, and then was able to slide it out. You see, you just have these little retaining tabs here you have to be cognizant of. But here goes those wheel bearings, wheels that I was mentioning. You see how caked they get with all that lint and stuff. So these will all get cleaned, and this will get cleaned out better now. But if you're dryer, you know, you've got actually 2 sets, 2 on the front here, and then there will be 2 more at the back side of the barrel, and we'll remove the barrel here in a second. But if your dryer is starting to go bump, 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 bump when it's running, most likely these have worn out and need to be replaced. Now, removing the barrel is a fairly simple process. You can see I started to slide this belt upwards. But basically all you're doing is you're feeding the belt out towards the back as you begin to move this forward. But once you have the belt off, you can just lift up the barrel. So the barrel itself is surprisingly extremely light to remove. And you have these felt pads on both sides, but you see how they've collected lint as well, so we'll be cleaning all that up. I'll go ahead and go out on a limb and say that, you know, this could cause an imbalance in your drum as well, as lint starts to accrue over your felt pads. So just something to keep in mind. And now we have complete access to the entire inside of our dryer. There goes the last two wheels I mentioned, and you can see that they're going to need some cleaning. We got some lint buildup there, lint buildup all throughout the bottom of here, even around our motor assembly, so all that needs to get cleaned up. Here goes our belt. I was looking at it, and we'll annotate how it's fed through the backside of this motor. And you see we have this tensioner pulley here as well, which will help us because as we feed in the barrel, you can see that it will lift to give us slack on the belt to get it on. Now is also a good time to verify some part information. It looks like we have potentially a thermal fuse here and some other components that we can look at and get part information off of. And even though my heater element is not out, I'll go ahead and pull out these terminal blocks and measure it, so that way in the future, if it does go out, I can take a a measurement in resistance to compare with what I've got right now. For those of y'all watching and following along with the process on this heating coil right here, I have 9.5 ohms. That is what it is. I think the last thing we'll do is I'll unscrew this right here and pull out this exhaust pipe, essentially. And then we'll get to cleaning and getting it all buttoned back together. Some things to keep in mind as you're cleaning. You just want to use like a damp rag or paper towel or something to clean off these wheels. You're not going to apply any grease or anything to them because like I said, these are pretty much lint traps. So you're going to clean them pretty gently. What I typically do is I just wet a rag and I got one hand here, spin the wheel with my other hand, and excuse me, let the friction between the rag I'm holding and the wheel as it spins clean it out. Another thing to consider, so when you're cleaning out like this pipe right here that's been rolled and flanged out, so although during the manufacturing process they probably deburr these and lightly sand them, they're still fairly sharp, especially on this end over here. So and a lot of this metal inside the dryer anyways has relatively sharp edges. So if you run your arm or finger across it real quickly, expect to get a cut. So be careful of that. All right, so before I get to cleaning in here, it's going to be relatively simple. Wet a rag and I'll wipe down those wheels, vacuum out the majority of this inside, and then with what I can't get with the vacuum, I'll try to wipe down the rest. But it's actually been, I haven't opened this up in what, almost a year and a half at this point. So I'm actually going to put my camera down in here and just try to take a look at this, was this Canthal or 9 chrome or whatever type of wire conductor is being used as a heating element. And I just want to make sure that nothing is moved and potentially shorting out to the chassis. Now, if I had to replace this heating element, the thing to keep in mind is if you want it to last for any good measure of time, is to ensure that you're not shorting out any of these wires to the actual inside chassis of this container. Make sure that everything is nice and spaced out. It's about the best angle I can get with my camera this way. Let me flip my camera over and we'll go back in from another angle and take another look. Everything seems to be okay. Yeah. All right, time to get cleaning and then we'll reassemble. Well, with everything cleaned out and tidied up, including this motor, we'll start reassembly. We'll first start with this tube. We'll now do our belt and barrel, but we need to keep in mind that as we slide the barrel into this belt, that we stay on our pulleys and back there, so if it slips off, we'll have to adjust that. But I'm also going to make sure that as I get this barrel in, that this lip that we see right here is resting as it should be on those, well, kind of hard to tell, but the wheels that are down there. Actually did the initial belt routing incorrectly. Your belt actually, both pieces need to go underneath the pulley, otherwise it's too loose. So in order to keep it from slipping, probably what I'm going to do is get an extra set of hands to lift the drum and as I feed it through the belt. So I was actually able to do this just by myself. My wife was, who I was looking for to give me a hand, was making our dinner, and as you should know, if you don't know already, when your wife is cooking dinner, that's the priority. You don't interrupt that because a good dinner is a great value. But anyway, so what I did is I was able to keep tension on the belt, and I fed it over the back while reaching over the barrel, and just got it to about right here. And then I came down here and I pushed the bottom of our barrel up over the wheels that were in the quarters over there. And then I would just stand back up, keep it in place, rotating it clockwise every few inches, pulling the belt further and further back until it was in the right place. With the barrel and belt now in place, it is time to reattach this assembly. I would highly recommend, once you have this piece on, to go ahead and come up here and just slowly spin your barrel and listen, and make sure that the only thing you hear is this felt rubbing and no other binding or metal on metal looseness or anything like that. But if it spins relatively easy and you don't hear any of that, you probably got this in the proper alignment. Okay, with the subframe back in, I went ahead and replaced the cover for the blower and reattached this cable right here. And our lint catcher can now go in. So we'll now move on to the front face. The I guess front faceplate, whatever you want to call this section, the whole front of it. Now with the front on and this wire attached, it's time to get the top back on. I will say, when you're putting these screws back in, especially the ones at the bottom, don't tighten each one down as you put it in. First put them in loosely, and then you'll be able to get all the holes aligned correctly, and then go back and tighten them down. But only thing I think I need to keep in mind when putting this top back on is how those cables are routed up underneath here, so that way I'm not pinching the cables underneath this guy right here. But yeah, it should be super easy. This pretty much slid on, so no big deal there. Okay, that was super simple. And for those of you who maintained these Maytags before and disassembled them, and were probably yelling at me a bit, like, "Hey, moron, you didn't need to disconnect all this stuff." You're right. The only thing I needed to take off was essentially this top piece and these two screws here, so it is what it is. I'm not going to film this entire section. Also need to reattach this flex hose right here. Being careful not to bind it when I reseat the dryer back into the wall. But yeah, that's essentially it. I'm gonna button it up and then we'll do a test run to make sure it heats up. Like, seriously, do not take off those back screws. I'll probably put a warning somewhere at the beginning of this video once I edit. I had to take the entire top off just to realign the holes. That sucked. Alright, time to power this bad boy up. Coming on just fine. Looks like everything is functioning as it should. Alright, we'll just start it here and then we'll make sure that it's nice and warm. I'll give it a couple minutes. Alright, so I immediately went into a cooling countdown because it's got a sensing unit, and there's no laundry in there, but we'll just go ahead and pause it. Again, modern dryers. Oh yeah, it's actually very warm in there. And just take a thermal image from the back, and you have 152 degrees Fahrenheit, 152.7, 144. Yeah, it's definitely working. So there you have it. And what can I say? If this video was helpful for you and you enjoyed watching, please like this video. Consider subscribing to my channel. Again, I operate Having Fun Repairs as a business as well, so if you're in need of an appliance technician, Google site in the description. And you know, thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.
Bark.